Hi, this is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and today I'm going to feature a few cards, a few different options for using up some of your scraps of DSP. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and if you're like me, you have a whole tub full of scraps from different designer series paper that you just don't know what to do with. So I'm going to show you some options for using up those scraps today, and I'm going to show you an interesting technique to do a faux quilting on your card. So let's get started. This one uses the Good Morning Magnolia designer series paper, and I don't know if you can see what I'm talking about. On the edges of these rectangles, there's a stitched look on all this, and I'm not sure if this is going to show up on camera, so I'm just going to rotate this a little bit. Hopefully you can see what I'm talking about with the stitching. And this one uses triangles. This is the Painted Poppies, and it's the same way. Maybe on this solid color one you can see it. If you see it in person, you'll see that there's stitching. You know, we have some stitched dies. We have basic rectangles, squares, ovals, circles, but we don't have anything that would be the shape of these triangles. So this will give you a way to do a quilting look. Those are just two examples. The one we're going to do today is using the Ornate Garden. And in this one, and I hope you can see it, but if you'll notice, if you look on the pink one, you might be able to see it, but you can see the quilted line. So I just did diagonal lines down the paper, and it has a quilted look. So not only are you using your scraps, but you're adding that quilted look to your project. So I'm going to show you how to get that effect. You could do any quilting pattern that you want to do, and I'm going to show you how I achieve that. So let's talk about what you'll need. For the stamps that I'm going to use, let me show you on this as well. The inside, I just to give it a little bit of decoration, you could definitely stamp a sentiment, but I just used these accent stamps from the Ornate Ornate Garden Suite, and I'm going to show you those. So that's what we're going to do today. So for those little accents, I used this stamp here from the Ornate Garden. And then from the Painted Poppies Suite, I liked this Happy Birthday. So I used that. I used a lot of different things in today's cards, so you can always substitute what you have if you don't have these, or if you love these as much as I do, hop on over to my website and go ahead and order you a set. Okay, so this is the, and I'm going to turn it over so I can see, this is the Painted Labels die set, and I used this circular one for the front of the card. And then I also used the second smallest circle on the Stitched Shapes die. So that's all the sets that I used. Now, we're going to need a piece of Whisper White that's 8.5 by 5.5. I had my brain stopped on me for a minute there. Ever have those moments? So it's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, the normal standard card base, and I did that out of Whisper White. Then I had a piece of Early Espresso, and this is 5 1/4 by 4. And then I used a scrap of the Early Espresso to cut out this die, and also a scrap of the Whisper White to get the circle for the middle, and that's where we're going to put our sentiment. And then I have my squares, and these are 1 1/4 squares. And I did, what I did was 2 of each design, and I did some solids just to break up the patterns a little bit. So I just did 2 of each. You could completely do these all different. however you want to arrange them, but I liked the look of doing, I did 2 rows of the same 6. So let me show you what I mean. So here's the 6 different patterns, and then I repeated it a second time. That's just the way I did mine. You could mix this up however you wanted to do it. So let's get started. So I'm gonna start by, and this card goes together really easy. Well, I guess it depends on how much of a perfectionist you are with your squares. So we're gonna just fold the Whisper White, and this is gonna be the front. This is gonna be the inside. So we're just gonna go ahead and do our stamping. So I'm gonna get my little accent piece. And I just use this as a corner. I wanted just to use it as a corner. So you're just gonna lay it down. Okay, and then I'm gonna do it on the other side. So you just gotta look at your orientation of it to make sure you're getting it the way you want it. Okay, and there's that part done. And then the only other stamping that we have to do is on our white circle for the middle, and we're just gonna do happy birthday. So I'm just gonna ink that up, and I'm just using the black memento. And we'll just stamp that up. There we go, stamping's done. Okay, so let's start putting the card together. Let's go ahead and attach this. We're just gonna center that on there and have that all ready. And I'm just gonna use my liquid glue. And it fits right inside, fits this size, fits real good, just right inside that stitching. So if you kind of use it as a guide, the stitching on that early espresso, it just kind of sets right in there real good. Okay, so we're just gonna set that aside. Now what I did is I took my pieces and I just kind of laid it out what I wanted to do, because I found that if I just tried to pick them, I might not like the end result. I might not like how it looks in the end. So I just wanted to lay out what I was gonna do so I knew which squares to pull from. Okay, and then so I had that, and then I just repeated it. Okay, so I've got that laid out. I'm just gonna scoot that over a little bit. I'm gonna bring in this piece of early espresso. Now this is probably, if there's a difficult part to this project, it would be this, trying to line up your squares. Again, it's how much of a perfectionist you are. And you know, it might be easier for some to go this way, to keep this way and try to put them on. It might be easier to turn it. This is how I did it. I found it was easier for me to get them where I wanted, doing it that way. So that's the way I'm gonna do it here in the video. So I'm just gonna take my first one, a little bit of liquid glue. And the only reason I'm using the liquid glue is I think on these little pieces, it's easier. And also it gives me a little bit of time to manipulate it and scoot it. Okay, now you can work across this way, or you can work down and do all this way first. So your end card is going to be like this, but you can decide which way you want to place them. And I'm just going to work down and line them up. So let's go to the next one. And you don't want to be too liberal with the glue, or you're going to find that it's going to ooze out, and you don't want that to happen. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there. And I'm just going to talk a lot while I'm doing this, because otherwise it's going to get really boring watching me glue all these squares. One thing about this project, I saw a comment this week where someone had put that they had gotten discouraged with card making because so many of the beautiful cards that they were seeing all involved coloring, and they didn't feel like that they were talented as an artist, and that they couldn't color well and their projects wouldn't turn out good. And so they were really discouraged and not sure if they were going to continue to do card making. And so I just want to encourage you. This, for example, is a project that does not use coloring at all. So there are beautiful cards that you can make that you won't need to color anything. So I don't ever want anyone to give up the experience of card making, because it's so neat when you give somebody a handmade card and it makes their day. And I just don't want somebody to miss out on that wonderful experience, being able just to give of themselves to someone else, just because they don't feel like they're an artist. Because I will be the first to tell you, the art gene skipped me. My son is very good in art. He can draw, he can do all that. But it didn't come from me, let's just say that. And so I understand feeling that way when it comes to the coloring. It can be a little intimidating. So I fully understand the person's frustration, feeling like you can't do it good enough. But I have also found that practice, the more you do it, the better, it will turn out. Your eye will get better. You'll just, have a better knack. Even with stamping, when you first start stamping, it can be a little more challenging, but the more you do it, then it becomes just like second nature. So don't ever give up. Just keep trying, and don't be afraid to try new things, because you might find that thing that you really enjoy doing. And you'll get better with it. I've said this in a video before, and it's really true. If you could see the first card I ever made, oh my goodness, I was so discouraged. I said, if I can't do any better than that, I'm never making another card. It was so bad. And I just, it was bad. And, I did quit card making. I didn't do any for a couple years, actually, because it really was bad. And so now I'll make a card that I actually like, and I get so excited, and I think, oh my goodness, I did that. So it does get easier. Techniques become easier, and then you'll find yourself, what new technique can I learn today? What can I add to my skills? So don't give up. And today is a card completely no coloring. So for that person who made the comment, I hope you're watching, and I hope you give something like this a try, because there's no coloring and it can be beautiful. Okay, we're down to the last square. Now we need to do our quilting effect. Now you notice I did not use a ruler to make sure these were all totally even and equal. I'm not that much of a perfectionist with it. But you certainly could do that if you wanted to make sure it was totally perfect, okay? To do this technique, I pulled this out of my old sewing stuff. I haven't done much sewing in a while, but I had this tool. I've had this for probably 30 years, and this is a tracing wheel if you're not familiar with it. Used to, you could put your you could get your pattern, and there was this paper that had like a carbon-y stuff on it. You put that between your pattern and your fabric, and you could run this over the lines on the pattern and transfer the pattern to your fabric that way. So that's what this tool is, but it makes a great faux quilting effect on your card. So if you have one of these things and you're not doing much sewing and you think, I need to get rid of some of my sewing stuff, keep this with your card making supplies because it's a really good tool. So let me show you what I did. And I started with my middle and worked out, okay? So I just took a ruler and I went from corner to corner. Now let me tell you before you do this, you're only gonna wanna go crossed once. You're not gonna wanna keep going back and forth because those holes will become wallowed out and it'll just make a mess of your card. So I just did it once, okay? So I just ran it, and I'm gonna hold this up and hopefully you can see maybe on the green, you can see it has a stitched look, okay? Now, what I did, because my ruler has these lines, I put this first line on the one I just did and then ran it again. And that's how I decided how far apart to do my stitching. So I'm gonna put that on there and I'm just gonna run it across again, okay? And you just keep doing that. And it can be a little hard to see, but just keep looking at, looking for it. And you just keep doing that all the way up the card. Now, I'm doing a diagonal pattern, but on the samples that I showed you a few moments ago, I just made the stitch look around the shapes like the triangles or the rectangle. So you could totally, do whatever you want. If you have a specific pattern, you could do diamond patterns. That would probably be pretty cool depending on what your card was. So, there's a whole list of options. Now for me, it was easier to turn the card to go back the other way. I almost went too big. Yes, it was easier for me to flip it to go back the other way than to try to manipulate the other way. So and you don't want to press super hard, because if you do, you're just going to put a big hole through your paper. Doesn't take much pressure. I'm just going to hurry and try to finish this up. Doesn't take long. And you can lose your lines, especially in a busy pattern. So I'm just going to finish this up here. So we've got it done. So this is showing, I can see it pretty good. I'm not sure on the camera how good you can see it, but if you look at the solid ones, the printed ones are a little harder to see it. But if you look at the solid ones, you can see the stitched look. And all I did was use the tracing wheel, and I put a piercing mat, a paper piercing mat. Stampin' Up! Sells one. This is just an old one that I had, because you're going to want something that you can do that across that's not going to scar you. Definitely don't want to do it on your table or anything like that. So that's what I used for that. And then I'm just going to come back with some adhesive. And this is the new Stampin' Seal. It is a little bit different. If you're used to the snail adhesive that would break off really easy, this is a little different in that if you try to do it like you did your snail, you're going to end up with a mess. And I've seen, that's another thing, I've seen comments where people have getting really discouraged with this, but let me show you what I have found. When you run it, and if you'll just bring it up and kind of flick off, that'll break it. If you don't do that and it doesn't break right, it'll gum up inside. So just kind of flick it like that and it breaks off really easy when you do that. Okay, so we've got the adhesive, and this stuff is really sticky. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get this even. Okay, we're down to putting this on. I did not use any dimensionals for this because I felt like there were so many layers. There was already enough dimension plus the quilting look. I just didn't feel like popping it up even more was necessary. You could definitely do that if you wanted to have more dimension, more texture to your card. You could definitely do that. But I chose not to on this particular one because I felt like there was enough going on. So I just put this in the center. Okay. And then I have some of these champagne rhinestone gems. And what I used is I did, let me look back at the card. I used a couple of the medium-sized ones. To give a little text, to give a little design. And then I just used one of the little ones. I just felt that added a neat option for it. So there you go. There's the card. You can leave this blank just to sign it, or you could stamp an additional greeting on there. I'm gonna bring back the other two that I showed you at the beginning. This uses some triangular shapes. I stamped out the poppy and I did some Winga Stella in the center. I did the same stitching technique on the edges of the triangle. And then with this one, I did the same thing. I did the stitching on the edges of the triangles, used a cutout, a die for cutting out that out of the designer series paper for the Good Morning Magnolia. And there you have it. 3 simple ways to use up your scraps. I hope you'll give it a try. If you're new to watching my videos, please subscribe at the bottom. Also, if you'll hit the little bell, you'll be notified every time I upload a video. If you want any of the products seen here today, be sure to check out my website, and there's an online store there, and that's karensmith.stampinup.net. And check me out on Facebook, Pinterest. The links are there. All you have to do is click on the link, and it'll take you directly to my social media. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll look forward to crafting with you again soon.